It's Thursday, May 19. In the headlines, motorists hit with a sharp increase in prices at the pumps for the third consecutive week. The United Kingdom supports Jamaica's bid for Commonwealth Secretary General position. Regionally, wage woes in St. Kitts and Nevis, and Barbadians are being warned to brace for another above-normal hurricane season. In sports, Jamaica Scorpions doing well on the pitch. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The Education Ministry is working to distribute more COVID-19 test kits to schools across the island. This as there has been a reported uptick in the number of students testing positive for the virus. Education Minister Nadine Williams gave an update during the Ministry of Health's virtual media brief on Wednesday.
During the month of May, when we looked at the first week in May, 138 suspected or confirmed cases came to our attention. Of that number, 99 were suspected among students, with 22 confirmed as positive. 8 were suspected and 7 positive were reported among teachers.
Minister Williams says more schools have returned to remote learning for some students due to COVID-19 cases among students and teachers.
We also note in the next week that some high schools have reported that they have reverted to remote teaching, to the virtual teaching environment for some students in some classes, due to the suspected and confirmed cases of COVID-19 among teachers and students. So, for example, Kingston College's Melbourne campus reverted its grades 7 to 9 to online since last week into the Labor Day weekend to resume on May 26th with face-to-face. And there are some other schools you'll see on the screen that indicated to us that they might have had to send of a class or so into the virtual space in order to be able to continue school.
Director of Health Services Planning at the Health Ministry, Dr. Nadine Williams, highlighted a slight uptick in those numbers between April 25 and May 15, with 9 children in hospital. While some schools have opted to return to virtual classes, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tofton stressed the importance of returning to physical classes despite the associated risks.
We always knew that it would mean the possibility, the probability of greater spread of the virus because of the way the institutions are set up, close proximity between children, just their regular routine activities on their respective campuses. And we are seeing some evidence of that now playing out. However, again, the qualitative distinction around whether persons are sick sufficient to be hospitalized or just display symptoms to be overcome with time is worthy of note.
Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tofton, says the island's COVID-19 7-day average positivity rate now stands at 25.6%. He says the increase in new cases is due in part to the new COVID-19 Omicron subvariant BA2. Gabriel Thompson reports.
The Health and Wellness Minister says the increase in new coronavirus COVID-19 cases is not a signal to panic.
Although we must be mindful and we must take care to protect ourselves against the virus.
According to Dr. Tofton, as of May 18, over 1.4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered.
That number, 696,700 first doses, 593,866 second doses, and 100,100 single doses, with over 4,067 doses were administered to the immunocompromised.
Persons eligible for booster shots are able to access them at vaccine sites across the island. Principal Medical Officer with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Karen Webster Carr, says the island's reproductive rate of increase is greater than the rate of increase in admission.
Putting together the reproductive rate and the cases on a chart, we note what was spoken of earlier, the inflection point, and that's a sharp increase in cases that was seen for the fifth wave around April 20th, 2022. With respect to geographical spread, for this wave so far, we are just below 50%, but for the previous waves, at the peak, we went to up to 75% of communities, or a little bit more, that were affected at any given period in time.
$1.3 billion. That was the cost to complete the Port Royal Street Coastal Revetment Project. The 1 kilometer project was implemented by the Jamaica Social Investment Fund and funded by the World Bank. The project forms part of several infrastructure projects of the JSIF's Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, which seeks to enhance Jamaica's climate change resilience. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who was present at the official handing over ceremony, says this is just the beginning. He says there is to be greater investment in the development of commercial and residential real estate in downtown Kingston. The Prime Minister says we have been speaking with the World Bank and IFC, International Finance Corporation, about developing a project for the urban renewal of downtown Kingston, and we are serious about that. We believe that it can be a major catalyst for economic growth in this area. End quote. The project includes the implementation of 1 kilometer of composite seawall and armor stone revetment structure, upgrading of drainage features, rehabilitation and raising of 1 kilometer of existing roadway, and installation of a boardwalk to improve the site's aesthetics and promote recreational activity along the shoreline. A fishing village was also created for fisherfolk in the area who previously berthed their vessels along the shoreline. The United Kingdom has thrown its support behind Jamaica's candidature to be the next Commonwealth Secretary General. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeted on Wednesday, quote, "With a month to go until the Commonwealth comes together in Rwanda, delighted to confirm the UK will support at Kamina J. Smith's campaign to be the next Secretary General. She has the vast experience and support to unite our unique family of nations and seize the opportunities ahead." The United Kingdom is one of the most influential members in the 54-member group of nations. Heads of government for the Caribbean community have been told to vote for their candidate of choice in the upcoming election. 500 Jamaicans are set to benefit from a partnership agreement between Heart NSTA Trust and China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC. The collaboration will see the training of individuals who will possibly take up jobs on the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project. The project is expected to begin in June and will last for about 44 months. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is seeking to increase local production of animal feed. Making his contribution to the 2022-2023 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives this week, Portfolio Minister Pernell Charles Jr. said he's collaborating with Jamaica's main fertilizer manufacturers to guide research for the development of new blends that will maximize efficiency and reduce the cost for farmers.
Animal feed, Madam Speaker, accounts for approximately 70% of the cost in animal production. And so recently our industry has been challenged because of the rising cost of animal feed and the cost of input ingredients to make that feed. As a part of our efforts to reduce input costs, our Bodles Research Station has established 42 acres of Mombasa grass. This grass will be used to make hay and silage and sell to small farmers at cost. And this is a part of our food security program to support increased production while also serving as training for our small farmers. We want Jamaica to produce its own input to keep our costs stable.
Plans are also in place to help farmers reduce and reuse waste. The ministry also plans to train farmers on how to use local and farm materials to compost and reduce their reliance on chemical fertilizers.
It is our goal to reduce the dependency on the synthetic fertilizer. It's very important for us to use it, but we want to use it well and use it efficiently. Madam Speaker, we'll be using local materials because it has been proven to promote higher yields of agricultural crops and also healthier soil structure.
He says the ministry is putting mechanisms in place for increased commercial production of organic fertilizer from composting from household materials, adding that this is intended to combat the effects of rising fertilizer prices.
Madam Speaker, we have started implementing a multifaceted approach, which includes, one, sourcing fertilizer from other sources aside from Russia. Recently, Madam Speaker, you know that we received fertilizers which are being distributed now, and this was the third donation.
He says plans are being carried out to diversify the import sources of fertilizers. Persons planning to do some planting on Labor Day set for May 23 can get seedlings from the Forestry Department. Labor Day will be observed under the theme Reigniting a Nation for Greatness, Protecting Our Heritage and Environment. According to the Forestry Department, persons can get up to 10 timber ornamental tree seedlings free of cost from the Forestry Department's nurseries located at the agency's head office in St. Andrew, Williamsfield in Manchester, and Moneague in St. Anne, adjacent to the Jamaica Defence Force camp. A fruit tree seedling will be provided to persons who collect 5 or more timber and ornamental plants. The agency is also partnering with GB Energy Texaco Jamaica to allocate seedlings to areas outside of the nursery locations. Distribution will begin on Thursday, May 19 at Texaco service stations in Port Antonio, Portland, and Otter Bay, St. Mary, and on Friday, May 20 in Kingston and St. Andrew. Similar distributions will take place at stations in Westmoreland and Hanover on May 26, St. Elizabeth on May 27, St. Anne on June 3, and in Trelawney and St. James on June 10. You can email the Forestry Department for more information at fdinfo@forestry.gov.jm. Persons can also call for details of the distribution locations and availability of seedlings at 876-618-3205. Gas prices have gone up by $13.50 since April 29. We get the new prices and other market updates in the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
As of Thursday, May 19, motorists will have to pay $4.50 more for gas when they go to the pumps. State-owned oil refinery Petrojam says 87 and 90 octane gasoline, up by $4.50, will be sold for $207.14 and $212.15 per liter respectively. However, automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $211.20 per liter after a 25 cents decrease. Continuing with the 25 cents decrease, ultra-low sulfur diesel will be sold for $213.93 per liter, and kerosene will be sold for $184.05 per liter. Meanwhile, propane liquid petroleum, down by $1.94, will be sold for $76.57 per liter, and butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $86.09 per liter after a decrease of $2.64. It is important to remember to be on the lookout for price changes, as marketing companies and retailers will add their own markups to these prices. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, May 18, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.65. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $121.41. The pound sterling traded for $191.80, and the euro sold for an average of $166.03. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Wednesday's trading session. The JSE index declined by 4,912 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index declined by 38 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 4,941 points to close at over 400,000 units, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 5,169 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 105 stocks, of which 47 advanced, 46 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for 13A Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 Limited, Carreras Limited, and Edifocal Limited. The following companies represent the overall volume leaders: Epley Caribbean Property Fund Limited SCC with over 2 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares, and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the sole security trading over 6,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, 0 securities were traded. Nigerian officials were hoping to increase the use of cooking gas, as expanding liquefied petroleum gas would save millions of trees and the environment, but the constant rise in gas prices threatened that objective. More from Al Jazeera News.
It's been 2.5 years since Mahmoud Usman switched from firewood and charcoal to cooking gas to prepare his meals. He says it's fast, easier, and healthier. But with higher prices eating deep into his earnings, he's wondering if that's a wise move.
I used to pay the equivalent of $1.50 for gas in the small cylinder. The price has tripled now.
The rising cost of gas for cooking has pushed many in Nigeria to resort to using wood and charcoal. Here at the local charcoal market in Dotsa, new consignments arrive by the truckloads. Business is brisk.
We sell 200 to 400 bags of charcoal daily. On a very good day, we sell more than 500 bags.
To make those 500 bags, dozens of trees must have been cut down. Cooking gas usage in Africa's biggest oil and gas producer rose by 60% in 2020, exceeding 1 million metric tons. Sales grew further last year, but then slowed down due to reductions in supply. The country now has to import gas at higher prices.
Importing, there is a lot of taxes on it, maybe a custom duty, something like that. So it makes the product to be very high when it lands in the country. So that's the challenges we are having now.
The jump in cooking gas prices for Nigerians already struggling with rising inflation is also reversing gains made in protecting trees in a country where 10 million are cut down every year.
Officials say they hope increasing people's use of cooking gas will save millions of trees and the environment. But the high jump in prices of liquefied petroleum gas will make that harder to achieve.
Nigeria State Oil Company blames the rising cost and global price increases. But with the country still importing most of its gas, users are bracing for more price hikes. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Kano, Nigeria.
In market data for oil was up on Thursday morning, recovering from early losses as concern over tight global supplies outweigh concerns over slower economic growth. Brent crude jumped 1.45% to $110.69 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude rose 1.07% to $108.18 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news in St. Lucia, the Philip J. Pierre administration received over $18 million from the Taiwan government. The investment is to be allocated to the 2022-2023 Constituency Development Fund. MBC Prime has the details.
Thanks to the Taiwanese government, St. Lucia's members of parliament have access to an EC $18.5 million fund to develop their constituencies. On May 16th, Taiwan ambassador to St. Lucia, His Excellency Peter Chen, delivered the multi-million-dollar check to the Accountant General during a brief presentation ceremony witnessed by the Cabinet of Ministers and other senior public officials.
that we gather here not only for handovering funding, not for simply kicking off some projects, but to combine our efforts to improve people's life. To bring in citizens of light together and tend to it side by side. Through CDP, basic and critical livelihood infrastructures will be provided, and residents will benefit from jobs created during those projects. As President Tsai Ing-wen said, Taiwan can help, and Taiwan is helping. Taiwan is proud to be a partner. The Honorable Prime Minister Pierre's vision and approach in implementing CDP is admirable as it is inspiring. The WHO could learn a thing or two from Honorable Prime Minister on how to emphasize inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability, as Honorable Prime Minister stressed in the 2022-2023 budget address.
The government-run Constituency Development Program, CDP, provides MPs resources to undertake small-scale infrastructural projects. The CDP is credited for the construction of footpaths, drains, retaining walls, and community cleanups. It also eases pressure off central government operations. Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre alleges during his previous stint as opposition leader, Labour Party MPs were deprived access to CDP funds by the former Chasney-led United Workers' Party administration. Pierre has vowed to discontinue the alleged practice and ensure equitable access to CDP funds for every duly elected MP.
But for the last 5 years, from 2016, the parliamentary representatives in opposition hadn't got 1 cent directed through them into their constituencies. And I say that somebody might tell me that's not a place for that. But we cannot make the same errors of the past. And we cannot reinvent the history. For the last 5, from 2016 to 2021, the parliamentary representative for Castries East, on Sunday it's going to be 25 years since I'm representing this constituency. And we never, no one ever called me and said to me, Parliamentary Rep, what do you want for your constituency? And I swear and I pledge that will not happen under my rule.
The latest $18.5 million tranche has been allocated to the 22-2023 CDP cycle. Rihani Isidore, NBC Prime.
Barbadians are being warned to brace for another above-normal hurricane season. The projections for this year's season, which begins on June 1, were shared by Deputy Director of the Barbados Meteorological Service, Brian Murray. Sharika Griffith has the details.
The 2022 Atlantic hurricane season is set to begin in exactly 2 weeks' time. Already, forecasters are predicting another above-normal hurricane season.
Based on the figures from the Colorado State University, they are predicting 19 named storms, of which 9 will become hurricanes. And of those 9 hurricanes, 4 of them may become Category 3 or higher. The other entities also have their own versions. For example, the University of Arizona, they had 14 named storms, of which 7 will become hurricanes, of which 3 will become major hurricanes or more.
Deputy Director of the Barbados Meteorological Services, Brian Murray, revealing the projections for this year's season. He's, however, cautioning that this is just a forecast, and as a result of changes in atmospheric conditions, the number of storms could be more or less. 2021 was the 3rd most active hurricane season on record and the 6th consecutive year for above-normal activity. Mr. Murray says Barbados was fortunate that Hurricane Elsa, which was packing 75 miles per hour winds, passed at the speed in which it did, or the damage could have been considerably worse. As it relates to the freak storm, he's cautioned that they could become commonplace.
Storms like these we have to be watch out for because they could be coming a little more common. This is the first time I've seen a storm like this. you only see that in America. And when you see lightning like that, flashing continuously, that's a sign that you could probably get a potential mesocyclone/tornado. So that's a sign that we have to be mindful of in the future. And this year we have upgraded the radar. It is now a duopolar, and what that does is that it will not only detect precipitation better, but it also detect the wind fields better. So in other words, if we can actually see a mesocyclone/tornado, we'll be able to see it from our end, and then we will send out the warnings as appropriate.
It's customary that if the list of storm names is exhausted, the Greek alphabet is utilized. However, this year, a supplemental list of names has been unveiled. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Premier of St. Kitts and Nevis, Mark Brantley, has announced that the previous promised salary increase has become a challenging issue. More from Glenn Bart.
The salary and wage increase for civil servants, pensioners and step workers announced by Federal Minister of Finance, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, has become a challenging issue for Nevis. According to Nevis's Premier Mark Brantley, matters such as salary increases in the public service are usually discussed between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration. He said while the matter of a salary increase was discussed in Cabinet, the discussion on the amount was not discussed with the NIA. He pointed to political overtones on the approach taken by Dr. Harris.
The announcement made by Dr. Harris as to the percentage and the retroactive payment was done without any discussion with the Nevis Island administration or with my office as Premier and Minister of Finance for the island of Nevis. It is regrettable that Dr. Harris has taken this approach, as it departs from the practice since independence that such decisions would always be coordinated so as not to disadvantage any public servants or pensioners on St. Kitts or on Nevis. But we understand that this was a decision concerned with political gimmickry, rather than a genuine desire to assist our public servants, pensioners, and step workers. Having lost the support of the elected majority in the National Parliament, but refusing to relinquish the office of the Prime Minister, Dr. Harris is now engaged in seeking to buy the favor of the electorate through elaborate spending of the Treasury with no regard for fiscal sobriety. Even more cynically, Dr. Harris is well aware that he has absolutely refused to send to Nevis its equitable share of national revenues from our Citizenship by Investment program. Our analysis shows that since 2008, the island of Nevis, with 25% of the population of the Federation, has received only 7% of CBI receipts. During that period, more than $5 billion has been kept in Bastille for the exclusive use of the federal government, whilst less than $400 million dollars has come to Nevis.
As a consequence, Brantley said, the NIA will have to borrow money to pay salary increases, while indicating that Nevis will be forced to take a different path.
In sports, Jamaica Scorpions did well on the opening day of their third-round regional four-day match against the Windward Islands Volcano, with the Jamaican franchise reaching 118 for 4 in their first innings reply at stumps in Trinidad. In other regional four-day matches, the Guyana Harpy Eagles reached 219 for 4 in their first innings against leaders Barbados Pride on the opening day of their encounter at Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Elsewhere, Kieran Powell led way with the century for the Leeward Islands Hurricanes, who reached 308 for 7 in their first innings against Trinidad and Tobago's Red Force at the stumps on the opening day of their match at Diego Martin. And that's the news on PBC Jamaica. Remember to follow us on all our social media platforms at PBC Jamaica.